If you had asked me a year ago what betrayal looked like, I would have told you it belonged in soap operas and tabloids, not real life, and certainly not mine. Back then, my world was warm, predictable, wrapped in the safe arms of two people I trusted the most, my fiancé, Jason, and my best friend since second grade, Emma. We were the golden trio. The kind you see laughing too loudly at coffee shops, clinking beer bottles at late-night bonfires, falling asleep side by side during movie marathons. Jason was my heart, Emma was my soul. I truly believed they were my forever people. I remember the night it all started, a Tuesday, cold and clear, early November. I'd just gotten home from work, arms full of groceries, cheeks flushed from the wind. Jason was already home, sprawled across the couch in his usual way, one arm slung lazily over the back, a goofy grin lighting up his face when he saw me. "Hey, babe," he said, pushing himself upright to help me. His kiss on my cheek was casual, affectionate, the kind of small act you stop noticing after 3 years, but shouldn't. Emma arrived not long after. She burst through the door without knocking, like she always did, her hair wild from the wind and a box of pizza in her hands. "My heroes," she declared, kicking off her boots and flopping down onto the rug. Jason laughed, that rich, rolling laugh that always made my heart skip a beat. "You bring pizza, you earn a seat at the table," he said. And God, if you had shown me a glimpse of the future, even a tiny crack of the hell about to open beneath me, I would have slammed that door shut right then and there. We ate, we drank, we laughed. Emma teased Jason about his terrible taste in movies, Jason teased her about her goth phase in high school. I chimed in, roasting them both. It felt easy. It felt right. It felt like home. After dinner, Jason left to take a work call. Emma and I cleaned up, tossing paper plates into the trash, half-eaten garlic knots into the bin. As I wiped down the counter, Emma leaned against it, arms crossed, smiling in that sly, secretive way she had when she was about to drop some gossip. "You're lucky, you know," she said, voice light, almost wistful. "Jason's a good guy." I smiled, feeling a warm, smug little glow. "Yeah, he is." She tilted her head, studying me. "Don't ever let him go." The words didn't strike me as odd at the time, just Emma being Emma, sentimental after a few glasses of wine. But looking back, I see the way she said it. The way her eyes lingered a little too long on the spot where Jason had been standing. A month later, my life would be lying in shattered pieces around my feet, and that moment would come screaming back into my memory like a freight train. Back then, though, I just laughed it off. I didn't see the trap being set right under my nose. I didn't see how my two favorite people in the world were already slipping away from me, hand in hand. I didn't see it, because I trusted them. God help me, I trusted them. The first real crack appeared a few weeks later, small enough to ignore if you wanted to. And back then, I wanted to. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving. Jason had just come back from a guys' night out, something I never batted an eye at before. Emma had been oddly cagey all week too, claiming work was a nightmare and she was pulling overtime. I chalked it all up to holiday stress. I was folding laundry in our bedroom when Jason slipped in, a little buzzed, still smelling faintly of beer and wood smoke. He flopped onto the bed, face down, with a groan. "Rough night?" I asked, laughing as I folded one of his worn, soft t-shirts. He mumbled something into the mattress, and when I nudged him, he turned over with a sheepish grin. "Yeah. Just, long." He didn't elaborate. And I didn't push. But later that night, when he thought I was asleep, I felt him slip out of bed. I cracked my eyes open just a sliver, just in time to catch a glimpse of him padding toward the living room, phone in hand, the screen lighting up his face. And for the first time in 3 years, I wondered, who's he texting at midnight? The next morning, he was back to normal, making pancakes, kissing my forehead, teasing me about my bedhead. And just like that, I buried my doubts under a mountain of syrup and smiles. Emma came by that afternoon to help me plan our Friendsgiving dinner. She was all sparkle and light, chattering about menus and place settings, but something was off. Her jokes felt forced. Her hugs lingered a beat too long. When she went to grab a drink from the fridge, I caught her staring, no, watching Jason from across the room. Not just a passing glance. A deep, aching kind of look. The kind of look you save for someone who already belongs to you. It made my skin crawl, but I shook it off. This was Emma, my best friend since we were 7, who once shared her last slice of birthday cake with me even when she wanted it herself. Emma, who slept on the floor next to my bed the night my grandma died because she didn't want me to wake up alone. She would never do anything to hurt me. Right? The day of Friendsgiving arrived. Our tiny apartment was packed with friends, laughter bouncing off the walls, music humming low in the background. Jason was the perfect host, charming and attentive, and Emma was her usual whirlwind of energy, laughing too loud, hugging everyone, dancing barefoot in the kitchen. Somewhere between the second bottle of wine and the pumpkin pie, I caught them again, a look across the room. Jason's lips twitched into a smile he never gave anyone else. Emma bit her lip and looked away, cheeks flushing pink. The room suddenly felt too hot, the noise too loud. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. Leaned over the sink, breathing hard. Get a grip, I told myself, splashing cold water on my face. You're being paranoid. It's the wine. It's the holidays. It's nothing. But even as I stared at my reflection, a sick feeling gnawed at the pit of my stomach, a slow, twisting dread I couldn't shake. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The first real confirmation that my gut feeling wasn't just drunken holiday paranoia came exactly 6 days later. It was a Thursday night. Jason was working late, or so he said, and I was curled up on the couch under my favorite knitted blanket, watching some mindless reality show with a pint of ice cream balanced on my stomach. Emma texted around 9. You up? It wasn't unusual for her to text me late, but something about it made me pause. I wiped my fingers on the blanket and typed back. Of course. Come over if you want. Jason's working late. Less than 10 minutes later, she was at my door. When I opened it, I barely recognized her. Emma, who always wore a smile like armor, looked hollow. Her mascara was smudged under her eyes, her mouth set in a thin, trembling line. Without saying a word, she pushed past me into the apartment, kicking off her shoes like always, but it felt wrong. Forced. What's wrong? I asked, following her into the kitchen. She yanked open the fridge, grabbed a bottle of wine, and poured herself a glass, no words, just the slosh of cheap red hitting the glass. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, studying her. Emma. She took a long drink, then another, before finally slamming the glass down on the counter. Nothing, she said, too brightly. Everything's fine. It was a lie so thick I could taste it in the air. I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded the truth. But instead, I let her retreat behind that brittle smile. I let her sit on my couch, curl up under the blanket that still smelled like Jason, and laugh at the TV until the wine took her under and she fell asleep mid-sentence. I covered her with another blanket, brushed the hair out of her face, and stood there for a long time, staring. There was a stranger sleeping on my couch. And the worst part was, I still wanted to believe she was my best friend. The next day, Jason was weird. Weirder than normal. He came home early, something he rarely did, and found me sipping coffee at the kitchen table, still in my pajamas, scrolling mindlessly through my phone. He kissed me on the forehead, but it felt mechanical. Empty. You okay? I asked, setting my mug down. He nodded too quickly. Yeah. Just tired. But as he dumped his keys into the bowl by the door, I caught it, the slightest hesitation. The way his eyes flicked toward the couch where Emma's blanket still lay crumpled. The way his shoulders stiffened before he turned away. Later that night, I overheard them. It was an accident, I swear to God, it was. I'd gotten up to get a glass of water, padding barefoot down the hallway, when I heard voices from Jason's office. I paused, heart hammering. The door was cracked open just a hair. Jason's voice, low and urgent, "We can't keep doing this. It's wrong." Emma's voice, thick with tears, "I know, but I can't stop." I backed away, blood roaring in my ears, the glass slipping from my fingers and shattering on the floor. The sound must have startled them because the office door flew open. Jason stood there, wild-eyed, Emma right behind him, cheeks flaming. We stared at each other, the three of us locked in a horrible, suffocating silence, until Jason finally opened his mouth. "I can explain," he said. And that's when I knew, it was already over. The life I thought I had, the people I trusted the most, they had already burned it all down, and I hadn't even smelled the smoke. "I can explain," Jason repeated, voice thin and shaky. Emma stood behind him, her arms wrapped around herself, as if she could make herself smaller, invisible. But it was too late for that. They might as well have set off fireworks in the living room spelling out betrayal in bright neon lights. "Explain what?" I asked, my voice frighteningly calm. The kind of calm you get right before a storm tears your world to pieces. Jason opened and closed his mouth like he didn't know where to start. Emma looked at him, desperate, like she was begging him not to speak. I stepped closer. Broken glass crunched under my bare feet, but I didn't feel a thing. "Explain how my best friend and my fiancé were sneaking around behind my back." I asked, louder now, the words slicing through the thick, choking air between us. No, it's not like that," Emma blurted out, finally finding her voice. "Nothing happened. We got confused, that's all." Confused. Confused? I stared at them, feeling like the ground was tilting under me. Confused wasn't stealing secret moments. Confused wasn't whispering in hushed tones when you thought I was asleep. Confused wasn't looking at each other like you were the only two people in the room. Jason rubbed the back of his neck, a habit he had when he was lying, a tic I used to find endearing. Now it made me sick. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he mumbled. "It just did." Emma stepped forward, tears sparkling in her eyes, but I flinched back like she was poison. We never even kissed," she whispered. "I swear to you, we stopped it before anything happened." But the betrayal wasn't just in what they did. It was in what they felt. In what they wanted. It was intent that ripped me apart, not just action. "You were supposed to be my best friend," I said to Emma, my voice cracking. "I am," she whimpered. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Best friends don't fall in love with each other's fiancés." Jason looked like he wanted to defend her, to jump to her rescue. And that hurt worse than anything else. He should have been defending me. He should have been standing beside me. "I think you should leave," I said finally, crossing my arms over my chest so they wouldn't see how badly I was shaking. They hesitated, exchanging a glance, their secret little world shutting me out even now, before Jason nodded stiffly. Without another word, they walked past me and out the door. The click of it shutting behind them sounded like the final nail in the coffin. I stood there for a long time, barefoot on a kitchen floor littered with broken glass, feeling more alone than I had in my entire life. They were gone. And the worst part was, a tiny, broken piece of me still loved them both. The next few days passed in a haze, a sickening, slow-motion kind of heartbreak. I went through the motions, woke up, went to work, smiled when people expected me to. But inside, it felt like someone had hollowed me out, scooped out everything soft and real and left nothing but aching emptiness. I didn't hear from Jason. Not a call. Not a text. Not a knock on the door. 3 years of building a life together, gone, like it had meant nothing. Emma tried, though. The first message came the morning after. "Please, can we talk? I never wanted to hurt you." I didn't answer. The second. "You're my sister. Please don't shut me out." My chest physically hurt reading it. The third came 2 days later, after a full night of me staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory, every moment, wondering if it had all been a lie. "Please. Let's just meet. Let me explain everything." Some stupid, broken part of me wanted to hear her out. Wanted her to make it all better, to undo the damage with one magic sentence. But deep down, I knew there were no words that could fix this. And still, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We picked a little coffee shop halfway between our apartments. The kind of place we used to haunt during college, sitting over steaming cups of bad coffee, planning our futures like we had all the time in the world. When I walked in, Emma was already there, huddled in the corner, clutching a paper cup like it was a life raft. Her eyes were red-rimmed and tired, her makeup barely covering the exhaustion written across her face. She looked up when she saw me, her face crumpling into a hopeful, broken smile. I didn't sit down. I stayed standing, arms crossed tightly over my chest. She flinched, but forged on. "I swear to you, nothing physical happened. I never crossed that line." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, daring her to tell me the rest. She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to fall for him. I swear, I didn't. I didn't even realize it at first. But after all the nights we spent together, helping you plan the wedding, talking about Jason, I started seeing the things you saw in him." Her voice cracked. "He's kind. And funny. And he listens, really listens. And after all those years of dating guys who treated me like an afterthought, it happened. I didn't mean to. I never wanted this." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I was unmoved. "You had a choice," I said quietly. "You both did." She nodded miserably. "I know. I know. And I hate myself for it. I swear to you, I tried to pull away. I told him we couldn't keep talking, couldn't be alone together. But he kept coming back. And I kept letting him." A beat of silence. "You let him," I echoed, numb. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared of losing you. Scared of hurting you. And," she broke off, looking even smaller. "Scared that maybe, if I just waited long enough, the feelings would go away." "But they didn't," I said. She shook her head, silent. I didn't know what I had expected. Anger, maybe. Denial. Defensiveness. Something I could fight against. But all I saw was regret. And somehow, that made it worse. Because regret couldn't erase the betrayal. It couldn't glue my shattered trust back together. It couldn't fix the bleeding hole they'd carved into my life. I took a step back. "Goodbye, Emma," I said. Her face crumpled. "Please, don't do this. Please don't hate me." I hesitated at the door, heart splitting in two. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I can't love you either. Not anymore." And with that, I walked away. Out of the coffee shop. Out of our friendship. Out of the life I thought I knew. I thought after walking away from Emma, after closing that door, things would get easier. Cleaner. But heartbreak doesn't follow logic. It's messy. It drips into every corner of your life, staining everything you touch. For days afterward, my apartment felt haunted. Not by ghosts, by memories. Every creaky floorboard, every coffee mug, every stupid inside joke scribbled on a post-it stuck to the fridge. Jason was here. Emma was here. Everywhere I turned, it was like they were still laughing, still whispering behind my back. I boxed up all the wedding stuff first. Invitations, favors, my dress catalog with the notes and doodles in the margins. I shoved them all into a giant plastic bin and duct-taped the lid shut like it could somehow hold back the grief, too. But the real gut punch came a week later. I was out running errands, minding my own shattered little business, when I got a call from my friend Taylor. She was breathless, half panicked. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. "Not the start of a conversation you want to hear." I sat down on the curb outside the grocery store, heart hammering. "What's going on?" There was a pause, just long enough for my stomach to twist itself into knots. "They're together," she said, voice low. "Jason and Emma. Officially. Facebook official." It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. "What?" I whispered, the word barely making it past my dry lips. "I didn't want you to find out from some random post," Taylor said quickly. "But they posted a picture this morning. Together. At the farmer's market. Smiling like none of this ever happened." I barely remember hanging up. Barely remember driving home. Barely remember the moment I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, forcing myself to look. There it was. A photo of Jason and Emma, standing close, grinning like teenagers in love. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting lightly against his chest. Underneath, the caption read, "Sometimes the best things in life happen when you least expect them. Red heart." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. They weren't sorry. They weren't hiding. They were celebrating. The anger came later, slow at first, then roaring up like a wildfire. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had made me feel disposable. Expendable. Like 3 years of memories, of love and trust and loyalty, could just be swept aside like dust on a windowsill. Emma had sat across from me in that coffee shop and cried about regret, all while knowing full well she had already chosen him. Chosen this. Jason had kissed me goodbye one morning, told me he loved me, and then turned around and wrapped his arms around someone else. The rage was a strange kind of relief, honestly. It felt better than the hollow sadness. It filled the cracks, made me feel powerful again instead of pitiful. I wasn't going to be the sad, broken girl they left behind. I was going to be the girl who survived. The girl who rebuilt her life from the ashes, brick by painful brick, without either of them. The messages started a few days after their coming out. First from Emma. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out that way. Please don't hate me." Then from Jason. "Hope you're okay. I never wanted to hurt you." I didn't answer either of them. They made their choices. Now they could live with them. But deep down, a bitter seed had been planted, a seed that whispered, late at night when the loneliness crept in. If they lied about this, what else did they lie about? And it wasn't long before I found out just how deep the betrayal really went. You ever have one of those moments where everything clicks, not in a satisfying, aha, kind of way, but like the final puzzle piece sliding into place to reveal a picture so messed up, you wish you'd never started building it? That happened about 2 weeks after Jason and Emma went public. I was cleaning out our shared Google Drive, something I should have done sooner. I was moving on, trying to reclaim my space, and I didn't need old wedding spreadsheets or honeymoon folders cluttering up my digital life. I was halfway through deleting a folder labeled Registry Ideas, when I noticed another one tucked at the bottom. No label. Just a string of numbers. Curious, I clicked. It was photos. Screenshots, mostly. Dozens of them. At first, I thought maybe they were just backups, trip photos, old messages between Jason and me. But as I scrolled, a strange cold started crawling up my spine. They weren't from my chats. They were Emma's screenshots. Messages between her and Jason. Some recent. Some old. And some that dated back months before everything fell apart. Conversations I was never meant to see. Jason, you looked amazing today. I wish I could have stayed longer. Emma, she's starting to notice. We have to be more careful. Jason, don't worry, babe. She trusts us. That word. Babe. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't an emotional slip or a moment of weakness. That was an affair. One that had been going on right under my nose. While I was planning our wedding. While I was helping Emma through a breakup last summer. While I was trusting both of them with everything I had. I clicked through more screenshots, each one hitting like a brick to the chest. Plans to meet. Jokes at my expense. Private little nicknames. Talk about the future. Even a note where Jason said he didn't want to hurt her, meaning Emma, by staying with me too long. They had timelines. They had strategy. And worst of all, they had contempt. One message from Emma made me physically recoil. She's so clueless it hurts. Sometimes I think she's just in love with the idea of him, not him. She won't even see it coming. I had to close the laptop. I was shaking too hard. They didn't just fall in love. They orchestrated a slow-motion demolition of my life. Brick by brick, lie by lie, they dismantled my home, my relationship, my self-worth. They made me the punchline of a joke I didn't even know I was in. I don't know how long I sat there after that. At some point, I opened my phone, hovered over Emma's contact. Over Jason's. My fingers itched to call, to scream, to throw their cruelty back in their faces. But I didn't. Because I knew they wouldn't deny it. They'd just say what people like them always say, it wasn't meant to happen. We couldn't help it. You don't understand. They wouldn't understand what it feels like to be betrayed twice, once by the person you planned to marry, and once by the only person who knew every dark corner of your heart. No. They didn't deserve a piece of my grief anymore. I called Taylor. Told her everything. She listened in silence, then said, "Tell me where you are." "I'm bringing wine and a baseball bat." She was only half joking. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I was too busy planning something else entirely. Not revenge. Something better. Something that would give me my power back. The beautiful thing about truth is that once it comes to light, it doesn't go back into the shadows, and neither do you. That weekend, I printed out every screenshot. Not for them, for me. Proof. Closure. Armor. I stuffed it all into a thick manila folder and labeled it, in black Sharpie, "What Really Happened." I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but just having it made me feel stronger, like if the walls came down again, I'd at least be holding a sword. The next part of my recovery came with fresh sheets, new throw pillows, and painting the bedroom a soft sage green, one Emma had always said made her look sickly whenever we shopped together. It looked perfect. I deleted our old photos, unfollowed Jason's family, his mom had sent me a "thinking of you" text that made my skin crawl, and finally updated my relationship status to single, a declaration I made for myself, not the internet. But karma, as it turns out, doesn't need an invitation to arrive. It was Taylor who told me. She texted me one night, all caps. "Check Emma's Instagram. Now." I hesitated. I'd unfollowed her weeks ago, didn't want to see her aesthetic couple posts or her perfect lattes and staged market photos with Jason's arm always just barely in frame. But my curiosity got the better of me. I tapped her profile. The newest post was a black square with white text, that oh-so-trendy minimalist life update style. Sometimes the people you trust the most turn out to be the most disappointing. Taking a break from social media. Please respect my privacy. The comments were already flooded with guesses. Breakup? Family drama? Health scare? I didn't have to guess. Because a few hours later, Jason's profile, which had still been public, updated too. All photos of Emma gone. Their soft launch story highlights deleted. In their place was a single, vague quote. Sometimes we outgrow people we once thought we couldn't live without. Oof. Classic coward energy. I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep in your ribs and feels like fresh air after being underwater too long. They didn't work out. It didn't last. And yeah, I could be petty and say that was satisfying, because it was. But more than that, it was clarifying. They had thrown away something real for a fantasy. A stolen dream. And surprise surprise, it didn't stand a chance in the daylight. I found out the rest a few days later from a mutual friend. Apparently, Emma had grown increasingly jealous. She thought Jason still had feelings for me. Kept accusing him of comparing her to me, resenting that she was living in my old apartment, sitting at the desk I once studied at, drinking coffee from my mugs. She hated being the consolation prize. And Jason? Jason hated being stuck with someone who knew all his worst secrets. He once told me Emma was chaotic but fun. Turns out, when the thrill wore off, all that was left was chaos. They imploded fast. Quietly. No big blowout, just exhaustion and resentment and the crushing realization that they'd burned down everything for something that didn't last longer than a spark. I didn't gloat. I didn't message either of them. I simply pulled out that thick manila folder one more time, looked at the lies, the plans, the betrayal, and then lit the whole damn thing on fire in my kitchen sink. Smoke curled up in tight, gray ribbons. Paper blackened and curled. And with it, I felt the weight start to lift. I wasn't hers to betray anymore. I wasn't his to lose. I was mine again. You know what no one tells you about heartbreak? Sometimes the worst thing isn't the moment it breaks, it's the quiet that comes after. That eerie stillness, like standing in a field after a wildfire, the smoke still curling in the air, ashes clinging to your skin. But there's also something else in that silence. Space. Room to rebuild. A month after I torched the last piece of their betrayal, I took a solo trip. Just a weekend, a cabin 2 hours upstate, a lake that sparkled under October skies, and silence so complete it actually made my ears ring at first. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagram-worthy. But it was mine. I sat by the fire the first night, bundled in an oversized hoodie, sipping wine from a mug, staring at the stars. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't think about Jason. Or Emma. Or what I had lost. I thought about what I'd survived. 3 years of love that turned into lies. A friendship I thought was unshakable. A future that vanished in one slow, cruel unraveling. And here I was. Still standing. Still breathing. Still me. Funny thing is, healing doesn't announce itself. There's no trumpet or banner or big dramatic aha moment. It sneaks in through the cracks. In the way you stop flinching when someone says their name. In how you start dancing around your kitchen again. In how you look in the mirror and finally, see someone strong instead of someone broken. It was on that trip that I met Andrew. Yeah, I know. It sounds like a plot twist, like life decided to toss in a romance arc when I was just starting to be okay being alone. We met in the lobby. He was checking in, trying to convince the woman at the desk that yes, he had made a reservation and no, he hadn't accidentally booked for the wrong weekend. He was flustered, backpack slung over one shoulder, wearing the kind of smile that said, "I'm trying really hard not to lose it." I offered him the second room in my cabin. Totally innocent. It had 2 beds, and I figured, hey, I could use the good karma. We ended up talking until 2 a.m. that first night. Not flirting, not anything charged, just 2 people with stories to tell, hearts that had been bruised, lives in transition. Turns out, He'd just left a job that had nearly destroyed his health. Burnout, he said. Anxiety. He wanted to be someone again, not just an employee. We understood each other in that way only people with scars can. No games. No masks. Just real, raw, awkward honesty. We went on hikes. Played old-school board games. Talked about everything from music to grief to stupid reality shows we couldn't stop watching. And no, we didn't kiss that weekend. But when I left, he hugged me like he meant it. And when I got home, there was a message waiting. Thank you. For giving me a little peace when I didn't even know I needed it. I'd like to see you again, if you want that too. I stared at it for a long time, then smiled. Not because I was in love, I wasn't. Not yet. But because it reminded me of something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, tender, unforced hope. It's strange how life rebuilds itself when you stop trying to glue the old pieces back together. Sometimes the new shape doesn't look anything like what you planned. Sometimes, it's better. 6 months later, the woman I used to be is a ghost, someone I wave at through memory, with equal parts sorrow and pride. I don't miss her anymore. I respect her. I thank her. She got me through the worst days. She kept breathing when her chest was caving in. She packed up her life, moved on from the man she thought she'd marry, and buried a friendship that should have lasted forever. But I don't want to be her again. Because she didn't know what I know now, that sometimes, the people you love the most will carve holes into your heart, and sometimes, healing means building walls they never get to climb again. Jason tried to contact me once more, a single text that arrived one random Tuesday morning. I still think about you. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply. He had his chance. More than one. And every time, he picked the door marked selfish. Emma never reached out again. And I think, somewhere deep down, we both knew that chapter was sealed. Some betrayals don't come with redemption arcs. Some stories just end. But mine didn't end with them. It kept going. Andrew and I started seeing each other, slowly, quietly. No expectations, no rushing toward labels. Just two people learning how to be whole, side by side. He didn't flinch when I told him everything, the wedding that wasn't, the friendship that imploded. He didn't try to fix me or offer half-baked advice. He just listened. Held space. And let me grow. One afternoon, he brought over a tiny potted plant, a peace lily. I'd told him once, weeks earlier, that I could never keep plants alive. That they always died on me. He set it on my windowsill and smiled. Let's see what happens when something gets watered with real care. That stupid plant is still alive. Thriving, actually. Turns out I just needed the right sunlight. The right season. The right beginning. Last week, I walked past the cafe where Emma and I used to sit for hours, two giggling girls dreaming about the future. I stopped at the window, peeked inside. It looked the same, chipped mugs, handwritten menu, the smell of burnt espresso and cinnamon sugar. But I didn't go in. Some places are meant to stay in the past. Instead, I kept walking. Turned the corner toward the bookstore Andrew and I always end up in, even when we swear we're just browsing. He was already waiting, thumbing through the discount bin with that same crooked smile. He looked up, saw me, and his whole face changed, that kind of light that tells you you're home, no matter where you are. Hey you, he said, tucking a paperback under his arm. Hey, I smiled, stepping into the warmth of something that was never stolen, never faked. Something earned. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't need to. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's not screaming in the street or throwing drinks or writing public Facebook takedowns. Sometimes the best revenge is healing. Loving yourself. Outgrowing the people who never deserved your roots in the first place. I used to think that story ended the day I lost my best friend and fiancé. But it didn't. It ended the day I stopped needing them to come back. And began writing a new one. This time, just for me.